into it tonight. Buckle your seatbelts, ease back into the chair, pour yourself a nice tall glass of Kangen, and get ready to enjoy the show. Let me talk about one thing first. And I put this picture up here with a lot of my friends and the people I've met around this business over the last almost a decade. And I want to share, it's the people is why we do it. Right now, today, in this moment, there are millions of people suffering around the world. There are people that need this water. There are children that need this water. There are families that need this water. And there are all sorts of people who need the economic prosperity that Enagic can provide for them. And isn't it great to be part of something that you can feel good about, something that helps the world, it helps the environment, it's good for your body, and it's good for your finances. And that's what Enagic is all about. Here's a couple things for you to consider. Wouldn't you agree that, many people achieve health but never achieve financial security? And a few people amass great fortunes but spend most of their money trying to regain their health. And by the way, that's most people in the Western world, because if you look at yourself in the Western world, we're actually more prosperous than any group of individuals in history. And if you compare that over humanity, but yet so many people are suffering from poor health. And they can't really enjoy all these things. And of course, many people, achieve great health or wealth and remain unhappy. They get both, but because they don't have connection and fulfillment. And what we're here is to provide an opportunity for all that. Here's what we're going to learn today. Number one, we're going to learn the obstacles to true health. And I've been studying health since I was 15 years old and picked up my first bodybuilding magazine, studied exercise physiology, went to nutrition, trained with some of the best minds around the world. In the health industry, and I've practiced it on a daily basis, and I didn't know how powerful Kangen would be. And so we're going to share with you some of the obstacles to true health and how to overcome it. The next thing we're going to talk about is we're going to talk about the 4 reasons for the Enagic diet. And I call it a diet. It's not a diet like you have to starve yourself diet. It's a diet where you actually feed your body. And DIET stands for 4 specific things, the 4 reasons that we are going to address in this webinar. And finally, I'm going to share with you how a 3-part philosophy can change your life physically, financially, and emotionally. And it's done that for me, and it's done that for thousands and thousands of people around the world. And I'd love for you to find out how you can be next. Now let's look at a couple interesting things here before we get into the meat of this. Did you know that throughout history, waterborne illness is the #1 killer of humans? Think about that, even today. And did you know that over 1 billion humans on the planet do not have access to clean water as defined by the World Health Organization? Over 1 billion people. You can't even conceive of how many people 1 billion is. And did you know, for those of us who are in the United States, it would take the U.S. government $1 trillion to get its water filtration up to its own standards, which are over 35 years old. We have a massive issue with water, and it's not getting better. However, the technology to correct this in your own life and in your own home is readily available, and it's been provided by a Japanese company that has been around for over 40 years. Now, this water crisis that we kind of overlook is also an opportunity. And the Japanese, I love this, they write crisis and opportunity in the same model in this Kaishu script. So for those people that see a crisis, if you have a crisis going on in your life, whether it's a physical crisis, an emotional crisis, a financial crisis, whatever that happens to be, if you can look below the crisis, there's an opportunity, because what happens in a crisis, it tends to motivate us to make a change in our life, to make a new step, to make a new pathway, or try something different, or make changes. And sometimes it takes a crisis to realize opportunity, to kind of snap us out of what's really important in life. And for those of you who want to get into water, I'm going to encourage you to watch a video of the top water researchers from around the world who have gathered and put together a video called Water, the Great Mystery. And this video actually features an Enagic unit and shows the power of its effects on the blood chemistry inside the body. It's absolutely revolutionary. In fact, it's attracted some of the finest doctors in the world, people like Dr. Horst Filzer and Dr. Tim McKnight, Dr. Hiromi Shinya, these people who have put their, extraordinary careers and said, you know what, people need to take a look at this water. But this video is incredible and demonstrates how important water is, and what is water. It's way more than we think, and we take it for granted. But with our company, we'll show you the power of water and what it's able to do for you and your family's life in so many ways that you can't hardly imagine. Now, there's a couple of independent online videos. You can watch these to get, for those of you who like the science and want to hear about this, you can back this up with Water the Great Mystery. And this is all about the emerging science. It's a documentary, which I just kind of referenced to. I'd also encourage you to watch a video produced by the Canadian government called The Disappearing Male, and this is the effects of ignorance. Just like the law, the ignorance of the law is not a defense. The ignorance of the laws of health is not a defense. The ignorance of the laws of prosperity is not a defense. You suffer if you are ignorant. And so many people today are focusing on the wrong things. And I'm not here to condemn anybody, but the reality is we're taking in all this information, but how much of it is contributing to our health? But in this video, they talk about the amount of phytoestrogens that are out there and these estrogenic plastics throughout our entire water supply, entire food supply. And what it's doing, it's causing a dramatic drop in testosterone in males. It's also mutating and causing the death of males pre-birth in the embryonic stages, from tadpoles right on up to humans. This is a government documentary, Disappearing Male, made by scientists. It's frightening when you know this, and you'll start to understand why this is so important, why you need to get off the plastic bottles of water. Finally, we're going to talk about the business of water, and there's a great video on that called Blue Gold, and that shows you what's happening in the world of water. Blue Gold is demonstrated that water is going to be a bigger business than the oil industry. Imagine that. And for those of you who are wondering, well, I don't know, my doctor hasn't heard about this, or I haven't heard of it. Why haven't I heard about it by a doctor? Well, I'm going to share with you a fellow by the name of Dr. Tim McKnight, MD, PhD in nutrition, and he wrote a book called Confessions of a Skeptical Physician. And in this book, he gives all the peer-reviewed studies and scientific backup that allowed him to come to the realization that virtually everybody needs this water, and that this water is the answer to a lot of the ailments that the world is dealing with. In fact, Tim, and you can get his book online, by the way, Tim served the last government, he was brought to Washington to find out of how he could help small communities improve their health, and one of his suggestions was, people need to get on this water. This is amazing. And as an MD and as a PhD in nutrition, he's a very unique position. Most nutritionists are not doctors, and most doctors are not nutritionists. He's both of them, and has come to some very extraordinary conclusions. You can Google him and check out some of his presentations online. And here's another fellow who just recently retired, Dr. Hiromi Shinya, MD, one of the most famous gastroenterologists in the world. Literally scoped over 300,000 colons, developed the Shinya technique from removing polyps. This guy knows what goes on inside the body, and he said that Kangen water is an alkaline-rich 8 to 9, and it's considered to be the best drinking water because it's incomparable powers of hydration, detoxification, antioxidation. Amazing guy. Ambidextrous kung fu doctor from Japan that split his time between New York and Tokyo, treating the who's who of the world, and he wouldn't even treat them unless they got on Kangen water. Shan Stratton, nutritional coach of the pros. The guy has coached, I think now it's into over 30 major league sports teams, including some of the big things. The New York Yankees, the Dodgers. He's been with various football organizations, every single sport in the world, some of the who's who names of the world. And he suggests that everybody needs to get hydration. He owns his own nutrition company. We're good buddies. He's an amazing man. And he's suggesting that all his athletes get on this, and people. In fact, years ago when I got started, I had such a profound athletic improvement and recovery factor that I wrote a little book, and it was How Kangen Water Has Changed How the Top Athletes Superhydrate their bodies. And I predicted that there would be a host of world-class athletes that would get on this. And sure enough, there are. All these guys on the list are using Kangen water, and they're not endorsed for that. Finally, we're looking at why is this water so important? Well, there's never been a bigger toxic world in our lives. Pollution in the ocean, pollution in the air, pollution in the food, pollution in the soil, the whole 9 yards. And the bottom line is we can't really change all that. But what we can say, and what a lot of doctors and scientists and athletes are saying, is that Kangen water is the key to a long-term health and high performance. And I'm going to explain why that is in just a moment. Because there are 4 main obstacles to health, wealth, and happiness. And they all start in your physicality. The 4 things are dehydration, inflammation, environment, and toxicity. And we're going to go through these 4 things, and we're going to address them, and why all of these professionals, and why all of these doctors, and why all of these researchers, and why all of these scientists are actually saying you need to drink this water, and that this water is different. You see, the human body is approximately 75% water. And right now, most people are putting acidic, xenoestrogen-filled water into their bodies, whether it's coming from a plastic bottle, whether it's coming from reverse osmosis. Maybe they're drinking a whole bunch of sodas and pops and energy drinks and processed, chemicalized foods. And all of these things are highly acidic. And what that does is it impacts our long-term health, creating silent inflammation, degeneration, dehydration. These things are what leads to the aches and pains and chronic acceleration of the aging and degeneration process. And what Kangen water is, it converts your tap water into 5 super healthy types of water that perform various functions inside the body and can reverse or reduce this trend in your life. And there has numerous reported lifestyle benefits from doing that. You see, there was a guy by the name of Faridun Batmangalij who wrote a book called Your Body's Many Cries for Water. And he said that you're not sick, you're thirsty. And inside that book, he outlines literally dozens and dozens of chronic illnesses inside there of how you can fix that with water. And our water is probably the best way that you can go ahead and do it. And he said, don't treat thirst with medications, treat it with water. You see, at least 95% of the population is chronically dehydrated. And dehydration is the biggest enemy to the person trying to achieve optimal health. Now, you see, our machines restructure water so that it's smaller, it's wetter, and the reason it does it, it has less surface tension, and that makes it super hydrating. In other words, according to Dr. Tim McKnight's results, he felt that the water hydrates your body 6 times faster. In fact, there was a guy by the name of Dr. William Agger who won a Nobel Prize for proving how aquaporins work in cellular hydration. That's the little cells inside your body. So you can imagine your cells like a chain link fence. And a big fat molecule of water that would come from a bottled water or from tap water because of the way it's stuck together won't pass through that chain link fence. Well, when you do what's called ionization, you break up the big molecules into smaller molecules. Now, this happens in nature. This happens in a spring that's set up properly and it comes up bubbling up out of the ground. There's an ionization process. It happens when a waterfall happens, a big waterfall that comes over a cliff, and you can kind of stand there and you can feel this ionization and you feel good. Or maybe you've stood out by the ocean and you see the waves crashing on the ocean and you kind of walk down the beach and you feel good. That's because of ionization. Or maybe you felt the energy after an electrical storm. Well, that's the result of ionization. You start breathing in these ions and it takes away the acidic, oxidizing free radicals that do all the damage and all the inflammation in the body. In fact, how it works is the Enagic water machine takes normal tap water, it goes through this filter over here that you can see, and then it goes through the plates. There's 7 titanium plates in our main machine. There's an 8-plate machine, a 3-plate machine, a 5-plate machine, and the more plates that you have and the more power you have and the more surface tension or surface area, the more potent the water becomes. The better it hydrates and the more electrical-based antioxidants. And that allows it to absorb quickly, get into the places that it needs to, and provide your body with unlimited antioxidants. You see, going back to that example, the chain link fence, our water in its natural state is much wetter, but unfortunately we pipe water through right angles. And on these right angles, it kind of clusters up the water into these blocks. And what happens, or they add chemicals to the water like chlorine and fluoride, or there might be drugs in the water that's been recycled water, or there could be a bunch of agents inside there that makes this water kind of stick together, kind of like if you had soda water and it sticks together if you let it dry on the cupboard, because the sugar will stick it together. Well, chemicals, the way we hydrate it, or how it travels through the pipes can mess it up. And now we get these big models. Now your body's cells run at 80 dynes. And unfortunately, this is 110, 120, something like that. So you don't have to remember all the surface tension stuff. But for those of the chemistry guys, that we're going to talk about it briefly, we're able to break that up with the electrical charge, and it makes a smaller molecule, and you turn that tennis ball trying to go in through the chain link fence into a group of marbles over here on the right. And what that does is that allows it to get into the cell. So it's called lower surface tension water. And that's really how ionization works. And that's why it's different than anything else out there you saw. And what that does is that helps eliminate the challenges that we have around dehydration. Now, if you've been dehydrated most of your life, most people, if they get on a water trial with us, they drink for 2 or 3 days, and all of a sudden they feel like they're really thirsty. Well, that's because your thirst mechanism has been turned off for decades. Now, that's the first issue, dehydration. Kangen water covers dehydration. We can fix that. Number 2, we've got inflammation. Inflammation is the silent killer. I was talking to a naturopathic nutrition and founder of the Corey Hawley Institute the other day, an amazing fellow who's been studying all the greats for years. And he said the thing about inflammation is you can't feel it. You don't know it. It's not like getting a punch in the head or a cut or a bruise or anything. It's an internal inflammatory response that happens on all your organs, and it's the silent killer. And the only way to deal with that is with antioxidants. And for most people, they recommend a whole lot of antioxidants, green foods and superfoods and vitamin C's and all kinds of herbs. And you see all these things around the world that are in the nutritional supplement industry. And I manufacture nutritional supplements, and most of them are some form of antioxidant, which has been shown to reduce the negative effects of inflammation. Well, Enagic machines make virtually unlimited electrical-based antioxidants. That means you don't have to digest them. That means it doesn't have to go through the tubes. It gets to that right away. You see, free radicals are positively charged ions that do damage to our cells and cause inflammation. That comes from chemicals. It comes from breathing. It comes from living. Existing on this planet, you're getting these free radicals. And Enagic water ionizers, because they make this negatively charged ions, will bond to these positive charged ions, and that will reduce inflammation. Just that simple. And so many people have done it. You can Google it online. You can see people reducing swelling. You can see people getting over aches and pains and all these different things. Anything that's an itis. If you got an itis in your life, itis is a form of inflammation. That's what itis means. It's an inflammatory response. And so all these different itises is inflammation. And the best way to get rid of inflammation naturally is through what? Antioxidants. And the way you get the most amount of antioxidants in your life is through an ionization machine, because it doesn't have to go through the tubes and you can make unlimited. That's a good thing. We've also introduced what's the world's finest turmeric supplement called, and basically turmeric is the best studied nutritional supplement on the world. And the bottom line is there's over 5,600 studies effective to how it reduces inflammation. In fact, if you go to the Prosperity and Health Alliance, one of our nutritionists, Antonina Burachenko, has done an amazing presentation. You can get that and learn all about why that is and why Enagic makes the finest turmeric supplement. There's nobody out there that makes a turmeric like ours. There's nobody else that puts it in an encapsulated form to keep it from oxidizing itself, so that you get the most potent, finest Ukon turmeric supplement from Okinawa, Japan, home of the longest living, healthiest population on the planet. Our machine also makes negatively charged ions right here on that negative charge, and that's powerful because that allows you to drink this, you and your family, as much as you want. And you know, we have charts. If you can, I highly recommend that you go check out one of the demos. But the bottom line is negative ions, vitamin C, green drinks, all that sort of stuff. That's like anywhere from 0 to 100. Kangen will be 3, 4, 5, 600. If you're drinking purified water, reverse osmosis water, distilled water, and tap water or sodas, they're on the highly positively charged. That's doing damage in your system, and you need to have a strategy to overcome that. Number one, you can stop doing the things that damage. That's tough. Or you can start putting in the things that reverse that trend. That's easy.